Good morning, and welcome to First Unitarian Universalist Church of Rochester. We are a congregation of open minds and loving hearts, celebrating many sources of wisdom and many spiritual paths. Your faith, your doubts, your questions, your hopes, your identities are welcome here. Special welcome to visitors and newcomers. We're glad you're here, and to those online as well. There's a preschool playroom open throughout the morning for young ones and groups for kids after the time for all ages. All are welcome. After service, you can join us down in the Commons where you can find ways to get involved in the life of the church and enjoy coffee and donut holes and conversation as well. In January, we collected over $2,500 for Community Engagement Response Team, de-escalating and interrupting violence in our community. Thank you for your generosity to support that work in Rochester and beyond. February's Justice Partner is a longtime partner, Hawthorne Helps, and Sandy McLaughlin is here this morning to speak about that. Sandy, come on up. Right away.
Oops. Good morning, UUs. Are pictures really worth 1,000 words? Words are in your bulletin, and the photos will be on the screen. Let's find out. Hawthorne was built in 1917 as an elementary school and converted in 2002 to an adult education center. We have 300 such centers in our state. Hawthorne Helps, our social justice outreach, is right on site. So we ask who attends. Virtually and in person, about 1,000 plus adult students ages 17 to 80 years old. Some were born in the U.S., and 69 other countries are represented, speaking 44 different languages. 85% of the students live at or below the poverty level. So what do we do? So far this year, 520 school supply bags have been packed. Essential items are distributed twice monthly. First semester, we gave out 1,425. We had 1,425 student shoppers and distributed about 5,000 items. So, our partnership with Friends of the Rochester Public Library results in hundreds and hundreds of free books going out to students year-round. In the fall, we distributed 550 winter items. In the spring, 275 garden plants were shared. UU's assist with Channel 1's mobile market, and no, please no, there's never enough produce. So if you're a gardener, consider planting an extra row. In the slower summer months, we also distribute grab-and-go bags filled with essential items to Community Health, a clinic serving a similar population and whose numbers swell when migrant agricultural workers arrive. Most come from Eagle Pass, Texas, which has definitely been in the news lately. UU families are wanted to help count donations to our Blue Barrel at the end of the month. Looks like a fun time, doesn't it? 91 hand pump soap and 47 bar soap were donated in January. Shampoo will be collected in February. Today's 30 Days of Loving Kindness calendar suggested draw, color, or create something interesting. Twice a year, Faith Development Children and Youth do just that, decorating bags for Hawthorne. Those bags are packed twice yearly at Chalice Camp and today in conjunction with our Share the Plate month. Summer 2023, we had some very special volunteers who showed up to pass out those Chalice bags. Positive messages created by UU children, youth, and adults hang in the student lounge to welcome and encourage students. A young Middle Eastern woman was eating her lunch when I hung the hearts up last February. She stopped, stood up with tears streaming down her face, pointed to the hearts, and said in English, that, thank you. And thank all of you for sharing the love this month with Hawthorne Helps. And please stop by the social justice table or visit with volunteers wearing red logo aprons after the service if you have any questions or comments. There's also an opportunity to volunteer at Hawthorne Education Center itself. Thank you.
Thank you, Sandy, for that beautiful description of our work over the years and the work that you've committed to. And we'll give to Hawthorne Helps and raise money for that work throughout the month in our offering. So as the plates pass, you can give or anytime online. Thank you for supporting that. You can join us Wednesday night for Tupper Supper and program for all ages. Many thanks to all those who helped with this last week's Immigration Justice Dinner and Forum. We raised over $1,500 for the Immigration Justice Fund on Wednesday night and over $800 supporting the family directly itself. And we're supporting and forming a committee to continue this work. So if you're interested in joining or finding out more about an Immigration Justice Committee, you can visit the table downstairs in the Commons, or you can speak with Shelley Rowe, our Social Justice Coordinator, as well, to find how you can get connected with that work. And this week you can join us for supper and conversation with leaders to answer questions about the upcoming ministerial sabbatical. That will be this spring, late spring into early summer. Supper's at 5:30. Conversation with any questions, concerns, complaints about it at 6:15 with activities for kids and children as well. All are welcome. And next week, the Reverend Ruth McKenzie, our sabbatical minister, will be guest preaching, so you'll get a chance to get to know her as well. And two save the dates that are in your order of service on the back or in the e-news as well. This coming Saturday is our youth fundraiser Valentine's Dance. We have a long history of providing a uniquely inclusive dance space, so you can get your tickets in the lobby today to join us this coming Saturday. And then the following Wednesday, February 24th, is our festive launch to our combined pledge drive and capital campaign for our new church home. Supper will be at the regular Wednesday time, followed by a really fun, engaging community event that you don't want to miss. So that's February 14th, Wednesday evening, to kick off the campaign. All are welcome. We hope to see you there. It's for all ages. And speaking of that launch, we're glad to have Rachel Maxwell, our UU consultant from Stewardship for Us, helping with that campaign. She's been here this weekend working with our visiting stewards, preparing for this, so welcome. Glad you're here and glad for all that work. So I invite you to take a breath as we enter our time. And we're grateful today for Matt Schulke for providing music for us. Thank you for offering your gifts of music today. Let us enter our time of worship with these words from our minister in the 1870s, the Reverend Eliza Tupper Wilkes. May our faith in humanity and our message of hope and good cheer light our way. It's good to be together. In just a moment, the opening hymn will call us back, but before we sing, I invite you to rise in body or spirit and greet those around you and wave to those online as well.
Love is the spirit of this church, and service its law. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to help one another.
I'd like to invite the children forward. I think some of them might even have some special guests today. Do we? So I have my Wonder Box today because we have a new month, but I have a question for you first. Have you ever been asked to do something that seems a little overwhelming? What's something that you've been asked to do that just seems like a lot? Have any of you been asked to clean your room? And it is so super messy, you don't even know where to start? Oh.
And we don't put anything away, so it's a giant, enormous mess.
Yes, so it's a giant, enormous mess. I mean, it happens, right? And one of those things that we learn is it's not always easy when you're faced with something that looks really overwhelming. So in my Wonder Box today, what do you think? A puzzle. Here's the puzzle. Yep, that's the new one in the back. And let me tell you, it's 1,000 pieces. 1,000 pieces. This is probably the biggest puzzle in the back, like times 4. And look at all these pieces.
Whoa.
Right? And they're like different colors and they kind of mix up. And what if I'm not going to do it because I don't want to lose any pieces, but what if I came up here and I dumped this on the chancel and went, do this puzzle? And I said, just one of you needs to do this puzzle and you have 10 minutes to do it. You'd go away? Yeah. Run far, far away. This is not happening today by no means. But what if I said, if I laid this all out and said 2 of you can do it and you have a day?
That's me and my sister.
Yeah, you and your sister could do it. But does that seem more reasonable? Yeah. But even then, if I dump this all out, would you just grab pieces and start putting them together? No? What would some, there were some yeses and some nos, just full disclosure out there. Those of you who said no, what would you do? James? Oh, turn all the pieces over. Step one, turn all the pieces over so then you can see, then they wouldn't all be this blue color that's on the back, right? At least we get to see what color things were. Yep. What would you do, Gwen? Okay, so start with one piece and kind of look at the colors first and kind of go together. Okay, Clara? Oh, tell me what you do there. Okay, do the edges. So you would take it and separate all the edges, all the ones with the straight edge, and put those in a pile. Okay, so I think we're getting a system here. First, we would take them and turn them all upside down, or the right way so we can see the colors. And if there's more than one of you working on it, can some of you be turning them over and some of you be grabbing the edges? And is that easier than one person just taking this and me dumping it out here and saying, do this puzzle? What did we do there? What did we do? We made kind of a compromise, but more than that, we just made a plan, right? We figured out one place to start. And did we start with 1,000 pieces? No. We started with one piece at a time, flipping one piece over at a time, looking at the colors, sorting out the edges, and then what happens is that's all sorted out, and then you look at it, and what kind of happens then is you're looking at all these pieces and all these edges. Does it start forming the image in your mind of what it's going to look like? And sometimes might we have trouble finding a piece, like his nose is very purple, right? So maybe there's going to be a few pieces there that are purple that all look very similar, right? And might we have trouble kind of getting those pieces into place? And that takes sometimes what? Patience. So with some patience and planning and organization, and how many pieces at a time? One piece at a time, we could do this puzzle. So I'm thinking we might need to set this puzzle up in the back sometime. What do you think? Well, you don't have to work on the puzzle if you don't want to. That's okay. You have options, I promise. But together, I can guarantee we'll do it a lot faster, one piece at a time, than one person trying to do 1,000 pieces at a time. Now we're going to go back and pack some Hawthorne Helps bags. You ready? All right. We'll now sing the Children's Benediction. It's in the back cover of your gray hymnal.
How many of you remember the old slogan, no justice, no peace? That's KNOW. The follow-up was no justice, no peace. That was, in some fashion, the scripture on which I was raised. I was brought up unchurched by parents who taught me basically by the golden rule. Do unto others as you would have them do unto you. For the last 20 years or so, I have had posted on my refrigerator door a sheet entitled The Golden Rules from Diverse Traditions, a recitation of the Golden Rule as found within multiple religious statements. The Golden Rule that we are most familiar with is adapted from the New Testament, Jesus' Sermon on the Mount, while the Jewish Talmud offers, What is hateful to you, do not do to your fellow. This is the whole Torah. The rest is commentary. My favorite one is a Native American one from the Cherokee tradition. Your mind, your relationship with yourself and others are reflected in everything around you. Your intentions, your actions are causes which return to you as effects. Always there is the pure stream of light in the mind within you, to be actualized in right relationship and actions for the good of all. This all seems so simple, yet it is sometimes so difficult to practice in our day-to-day experience. Why is that? What makes it so hard on occasion to apply this, not only to strangers, but to those who are nearest and dearest to our hearts? And I'm not offering an answer here because I struggle with this too. When I was growing up, I was also taught to be nice. Now that can be a double-edged sword. You can take that as being fair, to live out the golden rule, or it can be to acquiesce, to go along, to not make waves. Sadly, the latter interpretation was the one that was most acceptable in my younger years. To look the other way, perhaps, if you were witnessing what you knew in your heart to be injustice. Speaking out could be a risk, challenging the status quo and the powers that be. Fortunately, I have evolved somewhat. I've written a number of letters to the editors over the years. These letters, however, were couched in much more polite language than I expressed privately. Speaking up or showing up in the public setting is important, no doubt, and I think a lot of that will be required, especially this year. And I know this church will help us all do it together. Our Unitarian Universalist principles inspire me as essential values that are a guide to how we strive to live our lives each and every day, how we interact with each other as human beings, and how we comport ourselves as citizens of this community, this country, and this world. Although it seems as though much of what we aspire to in seeking to live by the Golden Rule can be considered countercultural in today's society, we can show kindness each day in our own personal spheres. Also in the Native American tradition, it has been said, the universe is the mirror of the people, the old teachers tell us, and each person is a mirror to every other person. We will now, in gratitude, accept today's offering.
Good morning. It's good to be with you. I invite you to settle in here as we create a place of communal caring and connection. It's our time to pause amidst the busyness of our lives, to slow down enough to consider the beauty that is here all around us, and to open a space for listening and love. Here, we honor all who support us in this caring and loving and all-inclusive ministry. We send gratitude to Julie Gilkinson, serving as our caring coordinator, arranging care for our members and friends in need. The members of our caring committee are wonderful examples of our compassionate community, holding us up as we go through challenging and happy times. And life can be challenging. We could all use some extra support with what life throws at us. And if you are experiencing those challenges in your life, we encourage you to reach out for support and help. If you need additional care or personal pastoral care, please reach out to Reverend Luke or myself with that request. In this community, we share pieces of our lives with one another. We do this because all people here have value. Each person's experience matters. We lift up those who are experiencing sadness, illness, or loneliness. May the strength and love in our congregation help guide you. And we revel in those who are experiencing joys in their lives. May their happiness lift us all, and may their joy filter into all around them. We hold Natalie Haugen in our hearts this morning as she prepares to undergo a corrective heart surgery on Tuesday at St. Mary's. Our hopes are that it is uneventful and that her recovery is swift, with the knowledge that many are holding her in her healing. Cards of support would be welcomed. And today's beautiful flowers are shared by Joe and Kathy Schwartz in celebration of the love that they have shared for 58 years. And we wish them a happy anniversary and many more to come. Here, our service to each other, to the world, and to our faith is our focus. Let us carry that out into the wider world. May the faith in the spirit of life, love for the community of earth, and love for the light in each other be ours now and in all the days to come.
I invite you to take a deep breath. Breathe deep the breath of life. Feel below you the earth and its ancient turning. Above you the sky, and beyond that the stars shining with their ancient light, holding you in this moment, this breath. You yourself made of earth and stars. Know that in this house you are named, you're known as beloved, as sacred. I invite you into this time of meditation, this time of prayer, first by sharing silence together. Spirit of life, source of love, God and Gaia of many names and beyond all naming. Each day the world can feel so large, not only in the distance between places or cultures, the complexity of global politics or a changing climate, but also, and maybe more so, the closer to home issues, whether it's healthcare in our own home or institutions, or fair wages, or strained relationships, or personal despair, or more. All of it can feel so tangled, so thick to find our way through. Help us remember that to offer space in our heart to any large thing, we almost always start right in front of us with the smallest of things, with this person or this conversation, with this moment or this place, with this interaction or with this choice. Having the heart stay open to this moment of beauty or music or art or this morning's light or this shared meal. And from that place, the thicket is maybe no less tangled, but perhaps we'll know to only hold what we can hold. I invite you to bring the names or the places you're holding in your heart this day in joy or sorrow, celebration or concern, and silently or aloud now in this time to speak their names. The names spoken and unspoken, may we all be held in love and grace. These words of meditation are from Howard Thurman. Don't ask yourself just what the world needs. Ask yourself what makes you come alive, and do that. Because what the world needs is people who come alive. May we be instruments of a world where more and more people have all they need to be more and more alive. May that be so. Amen.
first reading is an excerpt from Plan B, Further Thoughts on Faith by Anne Lamott. Hitting first has always been the mark of evil. I don't think one great religious or spiritual thinker has ever said otherwise. Everyone from almost every tradition agrees on 5 things. Rule 1, we are all family. Rule 2, you reap exactly what you sow. That is, you cannot grow tulips from zucchini seeds. Rule 3, try to breathe every few minutes or so. Rule 4, it helps beyond words to plant bulbs in the dark of winter. Rule 5, it is immoral to hit first. The second reading is My Species by Jane Hirschfield. Even a small purple artichoke boiled in its own bittered and darkening waters grows tender and sweet. Patience, I think, my species. Keep testing the piney leaf, the spiny heart.
There is an image that has been shared at workshops, at forums, trying to define some of the differences between equality and equity. A few groups around here were recently discussing these. The differences between equality, equity, justice, liberation. There are several variations of this, but in general, it's a few people trying to view a sports game of some kind, trying to see the game over a fence or a wall. Here is one of the typical images. The idea is that equality is giving everyone the same size box to be on, meaning taller folks can see over it, shorter folks can't. But equity is giving each person the proportional box height that they need to be able to view the game. And then justice, or liberation, is the fence being gone, or the barrier to the game being completely removed. And these images have shifted or adapted, been critiqued and refined and broadened to include more aspects, various questions and nuances, such as this next one. Just changing it to soccer, primarily. Maybe for a more global audience, who knows? But other questions have been asked, like why does it seem in the first that only males were wanting to watch, or Why are the people watching almost always having darker skin and then shifting that? And then questions like, why do we think watching sports is the best collective image of our well-being as a society? And then the other question is, why can't they just play the game? Why is that in none of the pictures? They're still always just viewing it. And so the image has shifted, like this one for soccer, and then this next one, for more day-to-day accessibility, thinking about how do we move in spaces along roads or pathways. So this has taken a variety of forms. And this month's theme here is justice and equity. These values core to our tradition, values we, like any tradition, have wrestled with, struggled with, made progress on, tried to adapt and shift and change, and failed at times, always a work in progress. If you tuned in last week, I referenced the 1803 Winchester Profession. And I'm just going to keep saying that phrase till you know it by heart. And I say, you know, the 1803 Winchester Profession. You're like, yes, of course, I know that now. But the short synopsis is, it's a bronze plaque on the wall by the bathrooms, a historic Universalist statement of belief. But one part we didn't look at last week was the phrase that good works are good for humanity. Influential Universalist Clarence Skinner lifted up the sentiment in the 1800s that universalism was about how to transform this old earth into the kingdom of heaven. The whole idea that heaven is not a place in some afterlife, but a quality of community in this life, in this world. Or modern interpretation of that the whole history of universal salvation, this core belief in our history, the idea that God's love was so vast and unconditional that you couldn't screw up enough to be damned to hell. And that love calls us to be an embodiment of those values in the world. So a new phrase often used in UU circles as a newer phrase of universal salvation is collective liberation. Salvation itself comes from the same word for salve, like a wound, something that is healing. It's about healing and wholeness and a community flourishing, being cared for and healthy. And an important part of the life of the soul is being part of a community, a spiritual tradition, and how it plays a part in your everyday life. Not just being in a space on a Sunday morning or a Wednesday night and then going out into the world and being evil and mean and hitting and breaking all those rules that Trish listed, but incorporating those values everywhere we are, of course. These larger values of justice and equity can be daunting. This past Wednesday at our dinner and forum on immigration justice, the powerful part of it was being rooted in relationship. Amidst all the complexity of all the issues that we continue to discuss and wrestle with, it's the transformation of the heart that a few folks shared about. The idea that I can't fix everything, but this small thing, this I can do. Sometimes it's the smallest things that matter a great deal. The power was not in the philosophical ideas of justice, but in relational moments of someone responding person to an expression of need, or someone else opening their home to guests. Then it keeps moving into larger, more complex, tangled questions about what do we do about the larger injustices that make this experience happen to begin with. That's what justice asks, but it's almost always rooted first in a personal experience. This is what working toward beloved community is about. Not having all the answers, not figuring out the most effective, expedient, clearest way to solve all the problems of the world in one fell swoop, but it's rooting ourselves in real-world challenges and lives that are messy, that are unclear, that are practicing these values in everyday moments when we're asked to respond thoughtfully and lovingly to some interaction, relationship, story within our life of the folks right around us, or the folks whose story we hear that we still need to learn. Rule 1, we are all family, writes the poet. Rule 2, you reap what you sow. Rule 3, breathe. Rule 4, it helps beyond words to plant bulbs in the dark of winter. And Rule 5, it is immoral to hit first. That's a mantra worth remembering. We're all family, breathe, plant bulbs in winter, don't hit. These are some of the most ancient basic rules for living a life in community. And what these values do is the most common everyday interaction frames how do we love our neighbor or a stranger or a friend or ourselves. There's a phrase that I heard years ago. You may know it too. I'm sure that it's stuck with me, often attributed to Mahatma Gandhi, who said, "There are those in the world so hungry that God can only come to them in the form of bread." There's something in that, I think, for us. In our work for a more just, equitable, loving, inclusive world, that we are holding the largest questions of systemic oppression and structural social injustice and climate change and catastrophe, and that we work out these questions in relational moments in community. Sometimes to fight hunger on the largest scale also means providing literal food to someone who's hungry right now, because it's connected and interwoven. The mind and the heart and the body and the soul, the need for food and shelter and clothing right now to the person in front of you at this moment, and, always and, the need to make food and shelter and clothing more accessible on the largest scale through policy and law and more. It goes together. It's a learning cycle. We work out the big questions in the small moments. So I've been thinking about these different images from these justice trainings on equity and equality, and I appreciate not only the changes and the adaptations over time, the broadening, the widening of our understanding, but even more so, I appreciate the process of noticing how we can do better, to go deeper and wider and be receptive to that learning. A constant and regular kind of reattunement, realignment for the soul, reminding ourselves that we have never arrived fully. We are always on the way. There's still more to learn, more to know. And what a liberating thing that can be if we're open to that truth. To realize that there isn't a perfect reality just waiting for us to get there, but that we are creating it as we go, moment to messy moment. Action, reflection, learning, and trying again. So instead of just tinkering with the sports fans on the fence, I'm thinking of other images that give us a glimpse of this type of justice, images rooted in relationship, in communal care, in our everyday lives. So this first image, I'm thinking of the history of unions and the power that they have against corporate stronghold, and the gifts that the labor movement has given to us all, union or not, like the weekend, which ministers have heard about, this magical thing out there. What is this weekend you speak of? But it is much more common than was typical before the work of unions. And I'm thinking of this because it balances out your day in manageable chunks: work, rest, joy. A balance still so desperately needed in our world, among the working poor, among the sprawl of over-connectivity where work may follow you everywhere, maybe right now in your pocket. I'm thinking, too, of both individual balance but also social balance, making space and time for shared meals, like in this next image. This is one of the reasons that I love our Wednesday night suppers here, or any time folks gather around a shared meal. It's a regular, simple way for people who love to cook and for people who love to eat to find space together. And in some ways, the centrality of meaningful meals in culture and religion and ritual throughout millennia, how community stays connected. Some theologians speak of a potluck or a community meal as a modern embodiment of what the ancient church really was trying to do, gathering for nourishment of body and soul. Tupper Suppers, then, is a sacrament in this church. And in so many ways, I do believe that. Any chance we're able to break bread together is holy. I'm also thinking of Setu Jones, who's an artist in St. Paul. Several years ago, he hosted a communal meal on the streets of the historically black Rondo neighborhood, like in this image. This neighborhood, as many of you know, was fractured by the construction of I-94 in a typical practice of the interstates ripping through predominantly black and poor neighborhoods. Setu helped build community gardens and art projects, and in this picture here, set up an event of a half-mile-long table for a community dinner. It was a chance to literally bring people together and bring a meal right to the curb of neighbors, drawing them out of their homes to spend time together, reclaim the streets as holy and communal public ground. That's what I think justice and equity might begin with. On the tables where we share food with others, on the curbs and streets where we live, in the small moments where we're asked to respond to some need and decide person to person, soul to soul, heart to heart, how are we caring for each other? In all its messy, beautiful, complicated questions. And sometimes it's patience, writes the poet, asking us to remember that even in our despair or our overwhelm at the suffering or impossible questions of justice in the world, the heart, like an artichoke, can still become tender and sweet in the midst of bitterness and darkness. In a messy and murky world, tenderness is still possible, and what a miracle that is. Or as Annie Dillard writes, there is no one but us. There is no one else to send. Not a clean hand or a pure heart on the face of the earth, but only us. A generation comforting ourselves with the notion that we have come at an awkward time, she writes, and our children busy and troubled, and we ourselves unfit, not yet ready, having each of us chosen wrongly, made a false start, failed, yielded to impulse, and tangled the comforts of pleasure, grown exhausted, unable to seek the thread. But there is no one but us, she says. There never has been. And hope, in the midst of murkiness, always begins in this moment with the heart. The hymn is in the Teal hymnal, when our heart is in a holy place. I invite you to rise in body or spirit as we sing. invite you, as you're comfortable, to place a hand on your heart or toward the sky or the earth in gratitude and breathe deep the breath of life. Go yonder, and gather the people. Give them not hell, but courage and hope. Give them something of the love you have found here, and tell all the people that love is our home. Amen.